I think the king right now, his best bet would be to distance himself completely, make it clear to Harry that the Sussexes are not welcome at all in Britain.
The Ministry of Defense themselves have sent me a lot of paperwork in regards to Invictus, and surprise, surprise, it's redacted.
More than 63 million Canadian dollars were spent on a single edition of the Invictus Games. Around the same time, questions began to emerge about sponsorship changes, financial priorities, and the growing role of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at an event originally created to honor wounded veterans. Then came a controversial new book. In Betrayal, royal biographer Tom Bower makes one of his strongest claims yet. He argues that the Invictus Games gradually stopped being defined by the competitors and became increasingly associated with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex themselves. Supporters strongly reject that conclusion. Critics say it explains years of growing controversy. So what does Bower actually claim? And why has his account reignited debate about one of Prince Harry's most important charitable achievements? Let's examine the evidence, the responses, and the questions that continue to surround the Invictus Games. For more than a decade, the Invictus Games have been celebrated as one of Prince Harry's defining achievements. Created in 2014, the international sporting competition was designed to support wounded, injured, and sick service personnel and veterans through the power of sport, recovery, and resilience. The Games have transformed countless lives and remain deeply respected by many of the competitors who have taken part. But in recent years, another conversation has begun to grow alongside that legacy. Has the focus of the Games changed? That question sits at the center of Tom Bower's latest book, Betrayal. Known for his investigative biographies of high-profile public figures, Bower argues that the Invictus Games gradually evolved into something very different from their original purpose. His conclusions have been strongly disputed by Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the Invictus Foundation.
You said off camera, and I hope it's okay that I'm repeating this, Prince Harry is done. Can you expand on that?
He's tarnished by losing a case which has cost them at least £50 million in costs. For Harry now, it's downhill faster than he can imagine.
Even so, the book has reignited public debate. In this documentary, we'll examine Bower's claims, explore publicly reported developments surrounding the Games, and separate established facts from interpretation and opinion. One of the most widely discussed passages in Betrayal is also one of its most controversial. Rather than referring to the Vancouver Invictus Games by their official name, Tom Bower repeatedly describes them as the Meghan Games. The phrase reflects his central argument. Bower contends that, over time, media attention surrounding the Games shifted away from the athletes and increasingly focused on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. According to his account, appearances by the couple began attracting more headlines than the stories of the wounded veterans the event was created to celebrate. He further argues that following the couple's commercial ventures after leaving royal duties, including projects such as their Netflix partnership, Meghan's public appearances at Invictus became increasingly significant to their broader public profile. These are Bower's conclusions, and they remain disputed. Supporters of the Duke and Duchess argue that their global recognition naturally attracts media coverage, helping bring additional attention to the Games and the veterans competing in them. Critics, however, believe the balance gradually shifted. Regardless of where viewers stand, one thing is difficult to ignore. The publication of Betrayal encouraged many people to look beyond the headlines and examine how the Games have evolved over the past decade. And that is where another series of questions began to emerge. Not from commentators, but from people who reportedly worked behind the scenes. As discussions surrounding the Invictus Games grew, attention gradually shifted from headlines to financial records. One number immediately stood out. Public reports estimated that the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver carried an overall cost of approximately 63 million Canadian dollars.
did go and I looked into the Invictus budget for the Vancouver Games, which was $63 million for a little over 500 participants. That's right, $117,000 was spent per player for 9 days. So anyway, I was researching and asking questions, and I will be very careful in saying this, but I was led to a document between the Canadian government and Invictus, and the budget was redacted.
The figure prompted comparisons with other military sporting events. Some commentators pointed to the U.S. Warrior Games, which inspired the creation of Invictus, while others referenced similar adaptive sporting competitions in Europe. Although these events operate under different funding models, organizational structures, and host city agreements, the contrast led many people to ask the same question: why were the costs so different? Among those looking for answers was Rachel Maxwell, a former finance professional and airline pilot who began reviewing publicly available financial documents connected to the Games. Using budgets, annual reports, and publicly released records, she attempted to estimate how funding may have been allocated across major expense categories, including accommodation, transportation, staffing, venues, catering, and operational costs. According to Maxwell, even after making what she described as generous assumptions for many of those expenses, her calculations still left a significant portion of the reported budget unexplained. That observation encouraged her to continue searching for additional documentation. Eventually, she located a Canadian government agreement connected to the 2025 Games. What caught her attention was not simply the document itself, but what appeared to be missing. One section had been heavily redacted. According to reports, the missing pages related to financial information, including budget and licensing details. Because public funding was involved, some commentators argued that taxpayers should be able to see how those funds were allocated. Others noted that government contracts are sometimes partially redacted for commercial, legal, or privacy reasons, and that a redaction alone does not indicate wrongdoing. Without access to the removed material, the reason for those redactions cannot be confirmed from the document itself. The story attracted further attention after Maxwell publicly discussed the document online. According to her account, the version of the agreement that had previously been accessible later became more difficult to obtain through the Invictus Canada website. While some interpreted that change as significant, there has been no public confirmation that it was related to the attention surrounding the document. Even so, the sequence of events encouraged more people to begin examining another source of information that was already available to the public: the Invictus Foundation's own financial reports. And it was there that another set of figures became the focus of growing discussion. Annual financial statements provide an overview of how charitable organizations report their income, expenditures, and financial position. When commentators reviewed the Invictus Foundation's published accounts, several figures attracted particular attention. According to those reports, the foundation's overall income increased during the reporting period. At the same time, published accounts indicated changes in a number of expenditure categories, including executive compensation, legal expenses, and financial reserves. Some commentators also pointed to a reported reduction in grants distributed to organizations supporting veterans during the same period. Those figures prompted questions about how available resources were being allocated and whether more funding should have been directed toward frontline veteran programs. Supporters of the foundation have emphasized that annual accounts reflect a wide range of operational responsibilities, including planning future games, staffing, governance, legal compliance, and long-term financial stability. Critics, however, argue that charities connected to public donations and government support should provide as much transparency as possible, particularly when significant changes appear in publicly available accounts. One additional entry also generated discussion. Commentators noted payments made to a U.S.-based company listed in the foundation's accounts, although the published documents provided only limited detail regarding the purpose of those payments. While the existence of such entries does not by itself indicate any impropriety, the lack of publicly available explanation led some observers to call for greater clarity. By this point, the debate had expanded well beyond one controversial book. Questions about finances, governance, and transparency were now becoming part of a much broader public conversation. And before long, those financial questions would be followed by another unexpected development. Several major supporters of the Invictus Games began making decisions that attracted attention of their own. By this stage, the discussion was no longer limited to financial reports. Attention increasingly turned to the experience of the competitors themselves. Many supporters of the Invictus Games have consistently described the event as life-changing, emphasizing its role in recovery, rehabilitation, and restoring confidence after military service. At the same time, Tom Bauer argues in Betrayal that some people involved with the Games became concerned that media attention was shifting away from the athletes. Among those Bauer discusses is Dominic Reed, the former chief executive of the Invictus Games Foundation. According to Bauer's account, Reed became increasingly concerned that public attention surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was beginning to overshadow the competitors the Games were created to celebrate. Those claims have been disputed, but they form an important part of the wider debate explored in the book. Bauer also writes that some participants and organizers questioned whether the balance between celebrity coverage and veteran recognition had changed over time. Media reports during several recent Invictus Games often devoted significant attention to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, including Meghan Markle's public appearances and wardrobe choices. Supporters argue that global media naturally focuses on high-profile public figures and that such coverage can bring additional attention to the Games themselves. Critics, however, believe that coverage of the athletes' achievements was sometimes overshadowed by reporting on the royal couple. The question is ultimately one of perspective. Should the public face of the Invictus Games remain closely associated with its founder and his family? Or should media attention focus almost entirely on the competitors whose stories inspired the event in the first place? That debate has become one of the defining issues surrounding the Games in recent years, and it also forms the foundation of one of Tom Bauer's strongest criticisms. Throughout Betrayal, Tom Bauer presents one of the most critical assessments of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle published in recent years. His central argument is not simply that the couple attracted controversy. He argues that their public profile increasingly became intertwined with organizations and causes that, in his view, should have remained focused on the people they were created to serve. When discussing Meghan Markle in interviews promoting the book, Bauer did not soften his language. He offered some of his strongest personal criticisms, describing what he believes has been her influence on Prince Harry and the public perception of the Invictus Games. Those remarks generated widespread media attention because of how direct they were. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have rejected Bauer's portrayal of both their work and their public role, and many supporters argue that his conclusions are unfair and one-sided. That difference of opinion is precisely why Betrayal continues to generate debate. Some readers see the book as an important investigation into the changing direction of the Invictus Games. Others view it as an interpretation that places too much emphasis on controversy while overlooking the positive impact the Games have had on thousands of veterans around the world. More than a decade after the first Invictus Games, one question continues to divide public opinion. Has the organization's mission remained exactly as Prince Harry originally intended, or has its public image gradually evolved into something very different? That question may ultimately shape how the Invictus Games and Prince Harry's legacy are remembered in the years ahead. By the time Betrayal was published, the discussion had expanded far beyond one author's conclusions. Attention increasingly turned to the future of the Invictus Games themselves. Several developments attracted public interest. One involved Boeing, which had previously announced a partnership with the Games before later confirming it would not participate as a presenting sponsor for the Birmingham 2027 event. The timing prompted discussion among commentators, although no public evidence has established a connection between that decision and the controversy surrounding the Games. There were also reports that Australia withdrew a previously announced funding commitment for a future Invictus event, while media reports noted changes to the leadership structure connected with Birmingham 2027. At the same time, organizers have faced the broader challenge of securing sponsorship in an increasingly difficult economic climate. Each of these developments may have its own explanation. Taken together, however, they have contributed to growing public scrutiny of one of Prince Harry's most significant charitable projects. Throughout this period, the central question has remained remarkably consistent. Can the Invictus Games continue to ensure that the competitors, and not the surrounding controversy, remain at the heart of the event? That question has become increasingly important as preparations continue for future games. One of the final questions raised in Betrayal concerns Meghan Markle's future role at the Invictus Games. The book argues that, given the public debate surrounding recent events, future appearances by the Duchess of Sussex may attract as much attention as the athletes themselves. Supporters reject that view, arguing that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have helped bring international visibility to the Games and its mission. Critics, however, believe the organization would benefit from shifting the spotlight back toward the competitors. Only future events will reveal how that balance develops. More broadly, the discussion surrounding the Invictus Games reflects a challenge faced by many charities closely associated with high-profile public figures. Public attention can be an enormous asset, but it can also bring heightened scrutiny, greater expectations of transparency, and increased debate whenever questions arise. Whether one agrees with Tom Bower's conclusions or not, his book has undeniably renewed discussion about governance, financial reporting, media attention, and the future direction of the Games. And those conversations are unlikely to disappear anytime soon. More than a decade after Prince Harry founded the Invictus Games, its impact on wounded, injured, and sick service personnel remains widely recognized. For thousands of competitors, the event has provided opportunities for recovery, confidence, and international support that extend well beyond sport. That legacy deserves recognition. At the same time, charities that receive public attention, corporate sponsorship, and, in some cases, public funding are naturally expected to demonstrate transparency and maintain public confidence. The publication of Betrayal has brought renewed attention to those expectations. Some readers believe the book raises important questions about governance, financial priorities, and the public image of the Invictus Games. Others argue that its conclusions are overly critical and fail to reflect the positive experiences of many competitors and supporters. Ultimately, the evidence available today supports different interpretations, which is why the debate continues. As preparations for future Invictus Games move forward, the focus will likely remain on two important questions. Can the organization maintain the public trust that has helped it grow over the past decade? And can the spotlight return to the wounded veterans whose courage inspired the Games in the first place? We'd like to hear your perspective. Do you believe the discussion surrounding the Invictus Games highlights the need for greater transparency? Or do you think the controversy has overshadowed the organization's achievements? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next in-depth analysis. And remember, the headlines may change, but the story is still unfolding.